My name is David Ferraro. I am the Executive Director of the Friends of Patapsco Valley State Park, and I'm here with Bruce. Bruce, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, welcome everybody. And again, thank you for this kind invite to present. My name is Bruce Clopine. I'm the president of Friends of Patapsco Valley State Park.
Thanks, Bruce. I'll kick it off. Braden, could you go to, I believe it's slide 10 at this point? It's slide 13. Thank you. Like I said, my name is David Ferraro. I'm the executive director of the Friends of Patapsco Valley State Park. Patapsco Valley State Park is Maryland's first state park. It's generally located in the Ellicott City area of Maryland. It is 16,000 acres. It travels along 32 miles of the Patapsco River. It's nationally known for its trail system. Patapsco has 240 miles of natural surface trail. Pretty impressive for a suburban slash urban park on the eastern seaboard. Patapsco is also noted for its heavy visitation. Each year, Patapsco is one of the busiest parks in America with almost 2 million visitors. And Patapsco is unique in other ways too, because it actually straddles four counties: Howard County, Carroll County, Anne Arundel County, and Baltimore County. So it's a very unique park. It's a skinny park that runs along a river valley. Um, Folks who visit the park generally enter in one of five developed areas. And I imagine many of you are familiar with Patapsco, and many of you are probably familiar with the Avalon area of Patapsco Valley State Park. That's the area in the southmost area of the park that comes off of Washington Boulevard. But the Patapsco Valley State Park extends all the way from almost the inner harbor of Baltimore to Sykesville, Maryland. So it's a unique park in many ways. It's unique for its trail system, for its river opportunities. And one of the things that's most significant about it is it has an incredibly diverse user base. This park really is a park for everyone. We see people coming to the park from all over the country for everything from disc golf to climbing opportunities to participating in our robust adaptive programs calendar. Our adaptive programs at Patapsco are really taking off. They're about 4 or 5 years old. And I'm going to turn that over to Bruce. Bruce has been one of the pillars of our adaptive community, and he's going to give you a little intro into some of the things we're doing here at Patapsco. So Braden, if you wouldn't mind going to slide number 14.
Sure thing. And thanks so much, Dave. As Dave referenced, adaptive programming has certainly become a priority with our friends group over these past several years. Really, the conversation about accessibility for the park in terms of adaptive programming took place in 2020, and all under the auspices that we felt that Patapsco is such a wonderful resource, and we need to make sure that that resource is made available and accessible to all users of all abilities. So, with that in mind, we began our first adaptive program event, if you will, in the fall of 2020, and that was with our adaptive kayaking. And right now, we host four different areas of programming from an adaptive standpoint every year at the park, and those are kayaking, hiking, fishing, and biking. And our adaptive calendar usually includes between 12 to 15 events a year. And adaptive programming is certainly been something that has been gratifying for us, and it's something for which we see so much um, interest. I mean, since we've been doing this, the growth, both in terms of participation and with um, partnerships, has been really something to behold. And we just saw that this past weekend with our most recent adaptive event, adaptive biking in the McKeldin area. But again, it's all about an emphasis on making this park accessible for everyone and making sure everyone is represented. You'll see there on the slide, or those you see on the slide, another great initiative through this in terms of accessibility has been our mobile visitor center, which our friends group was responsible for funding. And that mobile visitor center, it provides outreach in Spanish language as well. And it's just an opportunity to really further connect folks and all of our user groups in the park. So I think our next slide is slide 15, perhaps.
Yeah, Bruce, and I'll jump in on this right now. What I want to add is we're starting to look at a picture here of the Hollifield play space, the accessible playground in the Hollifield area of Patapsco Valley State Park. But I think that what's significant here is about 5 years ago, we were having such robust investment from our user groups here at the park that our board of directors made the decision to focus on some of our users that were a little bit underrepresented. And that started the mobile visitor center, which you saw on the previous slide. And the other thing that we focused on was building the Hollifield play space. It is a cutting edge playground in the Hollifield area of the park that is fully accessible. When it was constructed about 5 years ago, it was the only fully accessible, it's the first accessible playground in a Maryland state park. And that's something we're seeing a lot here at Patapsco Valley. Our friends group and the progressive management of Patapsco Valley, we're leading the Maryland Park Service and recreation in Maryland in providing resources for folks who typically don't have them. So if any of you have been to the Hollifield play space, you'll know not only is it a great experience for folks who have some challenges, but it's just a wonderful playground anyway. And we're seeing that in many of the events we're doing in our adaptive events. Initially, they were geared towards these specific communities, these specific constituencies, but we're seeing our broader population taking part in the activities, volunteering, and enjoying what we do. So right there on slide 15, that's just a quick photo of the accessible playground, the Hollifield play space. Very successful project, big support, and always busy in the Hollifield area of the park. So we'll jump to the next slide, slide number 16. And I think Bruce is going to talk to a little bit about what we wanted to do here, and it'll probably be a little bit about our adaptive paddling program.
Sorry about that. I was muted there. So the slide you see there does reference, as Dave mentioned, our adaptive kayaking. And the question is, how can we give agency and opportunity to people with accessible requirements, and to what parts of the natural resource could we provide this access? And really, to me, our adaptive kayaking, and that's how we kicked it all off back in the fall of 2020, that's really our gold standard in terms of partnerships, because that's really what makes this go. It's not just the friends group, but it's a lot of other partner organizations upon whom we rely. And with the adaptive kayaking, those would be two groups in particular, Team River Runner and the Baltimore Canoe and Kayak Club. Team River Runner provides all of the adaptive boats and related equipment for folks, no matter their challenges, to get out on the river. And Baltimore Canoe and Kayak Club is wonderful in that they provide more than enough experienced kayaking volunteers to accompany participants and their families out on the water. And with friends, we just help to facilitate that event. And the adaptive kayaking, it's something that, to Dave's point, initially we were kind of small in scope in terms of our reach. Lots of folks, for instance, from Kennedy Krieger, among others. But over these past few years, we've really been able to extend our reach to other organizations like the Howard County Autism Society and the Veterans Administration as well. So
Yeah,
that's great.
Bruce, I think that's a really important point we should stress here today. What we're doing here at Friends and at Patapsco Valley State Park is, our question to ourselves is, how do we do this? We had the strong relationship with the park. Friends is as a DNR affiliate. We are the official nonprofit of the park. I work at park headquarters with park management. So we have a very strong relationship with the park. But we didn't have the expertise in these communities. So we sort of planted the seeds for these adaptive programs. But it's really been our partnerships that has made this so successful. Not only do they bring the equipment, but they bring the expertise, and they've been bringing their communities also. I think that that's why our adaptive programs have been so successful, because we brought in the experts and we unlocked the resource to them. We gave them access and opportunities that typically some folks aren't able to get. So we really opened the doors to Patapsco Valley State Park.
And I'll just say one other thing too, if I could, Dave, is that I think we've discovered as we've gone along with these events that these specific events, like for instance this past weekend's adaptive biking, it provides folks an introduction to the park in many instances. For many of our participants, it's their first time they've been in Patapsco, and moving forward, they need not necessarily wait for one of our next things on the calendar. They know what's available at the park there, for instance, with our adaptive trails and so forth for hiking. So it really, for a lot of these folks, it really provides an opportunity for something that had not been imagined beforehand.
I was just going to call for the next slide, please. On this slide right now, and I'm being reminded to describe the images on the slides. On this slide right here, you're seeing one of our adaptive paddling events. There's a woman on a stand-up paddleboard, and in the background we have some of our volunteers. You can see they're in the chairs, getting in the water, preparing to get into the boats. So we have these established adaptive programs here at the park. It's part of an event calendar. Right now we have paddling, we have the hollow field play space, we have adaptive fishing, adaptive hiking, and we have adaptive mountain biking. So these are our sort of 5 core adaptive programs. One thing I want to note though is currently we are working with Baltimore Gas and Electric to have our first adaptive hunting activity at the park. This is still coming together, but we're seeing interest from our hunting community to provide opportunities for folks to hunt and target shoot at Patapsco Valley State Park. These programs are growing organically. That I think is a very important thing to note here. When we started these programs, we thought we could provide an opportunity. The interest and enthusiasm and support has been overwhelming. So we are slowly trying to keep up with the demand, and it's not easy. Our adaptive events here fill almost immediately. We are getting people from throughout the region. We're getting people as far as Lancaster, Pennsylvania, from Northern Virginia come to our adaptive events. And we're seeing a broader coalition of partners now too. Not only folks that are in the adaptive and accessible space, but we're seeing partners and sponsors that are typically outside of those spaces step in to help support those opportunities. Bruce, you want to just maybe briefly touch on like how we're dealing or attempting to deal with the growth of our adaptive programming?
Yeah, Dave, as you mentioned, it's certainly a challenge, but the best of challenges in that the capacity and the demand for these events we've discovered is certainly at a max, and it's only through those partnerships that we've been able to make this work. I mean, a great example to your point again this past weekend with our adaptive mountain biking, an organization called MORE, stands for Mid Atlantic Off Road Enthusiast. They are a robust mountain biking organization, but they have seen the need that we've seen in terms of adaptive biking in the community, and have come on board to share their expertise, their resources with us to make these events even stronger. I will add one thing on the slide as well. In the background is a young man. His first name is Sean, who's been to a lot of our adaptive events, whether it's been kayaking, fishing, and he was just at our recent biking event. And what really struck me, I was talking with one of the volunteers afterwards, and who was with Sean along the trail. And this is the first time he had been on this particular adaptive mountain bike, and first time he'd been on this trail. And she mentioned to him that, he does have some speech challenges, and at times it was, a little difficult for him to communicate. But the one thing that came in loud and clear is when he told her, he said, "I really like this bike." So to me, those kinds of stories really give us, direction and inspiration to make this a reality for folks who maybe never had these opportunities, never knew this was a possibility for them. Stories like Sean's are what it's all about.
Yeah, indeed, Bruce. And one thing I'll add to that too, and I know that you have, an inventory of stories like this. Not only are these experiences transformative for Sean, they're really impactful for our volunteers and the people who are helping provide for these opportunities. I know I can say personally that I feel like the adaptive work we're doing here at the park is some of our most essential and important work. And a day at one of our adapt events is incredibly gratifying, and it's a really cool thing. Braden, can we go to the next slide, please? I'm not sure of the number. So yeah, one of the things we're really becoming noted for here at Patapsco is our adaptive mountain bike trails. We are a park of trails. We're known throughout the United States as a trail destination. People on mountain bikes, trail runners, hikers, they will absolutely fly into Baltimore Washington International Airport and spend time at Patapsco Valley State Park. And we kicked that off with a 1.5 mile adaptive mountain bike trail in the McKeldin area of the park. Now, an adaptive mountain bike trail is not an accessible trail. It's not an ADA trail. It's not like what we have in the Avalon area, the Gristmill Trail. An adaptive mountain bike trail is a true natural surface, single track experience in the woods. This is slide 18, thank you. In the woods. So these trails they're constructed to something called the CASA standards, the Kootenai Adaptive Sports Association standards. And those are the sort of universally adopted adaptive trail standards. So we're taking our typical natural surface trails and we're modifying them so they meet the CASA standards. What does that mean? What it really means is a widening of trails. It's a sort of softening of the contour. It's providing larger turning radiuses if people have adaptive bikes. It also means having facilities at trailheads like accessible parking and ADA bathrooms. It also means having a trail loop that's really well marked with kiosks where you can identify where you are if a user needs assistance on a trail. So these adaptive trails, for many people, a traditional trail user might feel like a normal trail experience. But if you're on an adaptive mountain bike, they're built just for your experience in the forest. So currently we have 1.5 mile loop in the McKeldin area of the park. Next month, we're embarking on an additional 3.5 miles. So we will have a 5 mile adaptive mountain bike loop. And in 2025, we're adding another 5 miles in the Woodstock area of the park to give us 10 miles of adaptive mountain bike trails in Patapsco Valley State Park. That is an incredible achievement, but it started with a 1.5 mile trail that's already out there. And that trail is the first adaptive mountain bike loop in the Maryland Park Service system. Adaptive trails are absolutely happening here at Patapsco Valley State Park.
Yeah, and I'll just add to Dave's point, adaptive trails certainly are happening, not just in Patapsco, but as you noted, beyond. We just were contacted by Prince George's County Department of Rec and Parks earlier this week, and they're in the process of planning their own adaptive trail in the Upper Marlboro area. So it's just exciting stuff to witness.
Yeah, it's spreading very quickly. Okay, can we have slide 19, please? So in building these trails, the key factors when building an adaptive mountain bike trail aren't necessarily the land unit. It is other things. It is how these users can access the trail. It's parking, it's bathrooms, it is the topography of the area. We have built these trails in the McKeldin area because it is an area that's got a little bit more accessible trails. The Patapsco Valley State Park is a very deep river valley with steep side slopes. McKeldin is an area that's got a little bit more, I would say, friendly terrain, not quite as steep. So that's why we selected McKeldin. One thing to remember when we're building these accessible trails, when when you're out in the forest and when you're using a natural surface trail, a lot of work goes into those trails. Generally, those trails are designed and they're designed with use in mind. And they're expensive. Right now at Patapsco, for trails, we're spending about $40,000 per mile to put trail in at the park. And at Patapsco, we build trails for every user. We don't build trails for specific users. We don't have trails that are just for horses or just for mountain bikes. And that's really the strength of our park and our organization is we don't delineate users. And we're seeing that in our adaptive programs now. Initially, when we started our adaptive programs, they were sort of standalone. We were building these programs out for a specific population. Now what we're seeing is our general programming, things like Trail Fest or fishing programming, things like that, they're not built with a discrete for a discrete population. It's one event that is inclusive of our adaptive community. And in doing that, we're seeing even more momentum. Some of our traditional users are seeing the way our adaptive users are engaging with the park, and it's bringing more partnership and more momentum. Bruce, I think that you've really been key on that, looking forward and not sort of siloing our adaptive communities. Maybe you could share an anecdote or two about how that's been working out.
Sure, and I'll share that as well, Dave, in the context of our own board of directors with Friends of Patapsco Valley State Park. We like to thank our board, and as David referenced earlier, if nothing else, Patapsco Valley State Park is a multi-user park. And traditionally, historically, on our board, we've had so many user groups represented, whether it's a biker like Dave or a kayaker like myself. But what's really been exciting as well is we've made our board even more representative in that our newest board member is an adaptive athlete. And to me, it's great to have that voice at the table so we can further give import and priority to those areas. But again, to add what Dave said, these events, these adaptive initiatives aren't just standalone. We want to make sure they're inclusive in all respects. And that's what's been nice to see, whether it's been paddling or kayaking. It's not only the adaptive athlete, but it's their family, their loved ones, their children with them together enjoying the park.
Yeah, Bruce, absolutely. Huge milestone achieved for Friends. Again, initially we were building these programs out on spec with partners who specialize in these. But through those programs, we had someone step up from the adaptive community in taking leadership at Patapsco. So now the adaptive community is not just participating in the events, but the adaptive community is actually they have a seat and agency in the planning and programming levels at the Maryland Park Service. And I will say that that has changed the way we do business. Having that sort of, baked in knowledge about what this community wants has changed the trajectory of our organization and the park generally.
Fellas, actually, we just got a question here. Somebody wanted to know, did I understand you to say that all of your trails are for all users? Horses on the same trails as bikes and wheelchairs?
That is correct. We are a multi-user trail system. So a wheelchair on our trails, we only have one accessible trail in the park. That's the Gristmill Trail. That's in the Avalon area. It's a 3-mile paved trail that goes from the Patterson Viaduct to Lost Lake. But yes, the natural surface trail system in the park is for all users. And we're working not only with our trail running community and hiking community and mountain biking community, but now next month, the trail riders of today, are borrowing our adaptive equipment so they can introduce horses to some of our adaptive bikes too. That's the strength of our park, I believe, having all users together. And yes, all of our trails are all user, with a couple exceptions near for campgrounds where there's some small sections of hiker only, but 99.9% of the trails in the park are multi-use trails. Okay, Bruce, I'll jump into this real quick. This is about the Tall Poplar Trail in the McKeldin area. This is the first adaptive loop in the Maryland Park Service system. So in this slide, you're looking at a map of the adaptive loop in McKeldin. So in the middle of the map, you're seeing an orange loop. That is the 1.5-mile adaptive mountain bike loop. It's on the Tall Poplar Trail. And as a side note, that trail was always maintained and adopted by the Mountain Club of Maryland, our hiking group. And when we proposed the adaptive modifications, they were incredibly enthusiastic about it. They have volunteered at many of the adaptive mountain bike events, and they actually helped underwrite the development of the adaptive trails. So the orange loop you're seeing in the middle of the map is the existing 1.5-mile adaptive trail. The green loop, the larger loop that's on the exterior of the map, that is the expansion of the adaptive trails. So you'll have 5 miles of adaptive mountain bike trails that you can ride in the McKeldin area of the park. Still, the parking area is going to be right by the Tall Poplar Trail. That's where you can park your vehicle. There's accessible bathrooms, and we have constructed a side path. Braden, why don't you go to slide number 21? I think we're getting towards the side path. Yes, this is an important feature. So what we did at the Tall Poplar Loop is from the accessible bathrooms, we constructed a crushed gravel side path. So when folks are, after they're unloaded from their vehicles, and if they want to use the restroom, they can then go down the side path away from vehicular traffic to the trailhead. And I think this is an important thing to mention. And it's something that we learned here pretty quickly at Patapsco. Building adaptive mountain bike trails is not just about building the trail. It's about building the resource out so folks who have specialized needs can get to the trail, have a place to park their vehicle, have a restroom to use. And so we're seeing this new development throughout Maryland and through some county parks too about adaptive trails. But what I try to remind each one of these land managers is it's not just about the trail itself, it's about the infrastructure and the amenities that allow our adaptive community to use the trails. Bruce, any comments on that?
No, I think you put that well, Dave.
Yeah, it's important. It's an important consideration. I'm on the Recreational Trail Program Review Board. Last week, we did reviews of folks looking for RTP funding for their trail systems, and there were applications for adaptive trails. So those of you in this panel today, I want it to be known that there is funding and interest to build adaptive trails at the park. One thing that's key, though, when you're talking to your land managers, when you're talking to your county parks, remind them that it's not just about the trail, but it's providing easy access to get on the natural surface trail. And that can be, trail construction is one thing. The cost to build adaptive trails, that's significant. But putting in the facilities is also quite expensive sometimes. And so when you're talking to your when you're lobbying your parks and you're talking to your elected officials, don't forget there are several things contextual around an adaptive trail system. I see there's a question there. Bruce, do you want me to jump in on that question in the chat?
Sure.
Okay. So ADA has very specific requirements about how trails can be built. Adaptive trails are different. Adaptive trails are built in a way that conform to the natural surface, to the contour, to the topography. And I think I mentioned earlier the CASA document, the Kootenai Adaptive Sports Association document. That's sort of the leading document on building adaptive trails. So we get this question sometimes: can I take my wheelchair on the adaptive trail in the McKelvin area? And my answer to that is I'm not sure. We have people that have come to the adaptive trail on more of an off-road wheelchair. That we've had motorized wheelchairs on the adaptive trail. But it is not an ADA trail. It is not an accessible trail. There are steep grades, there are rocks, there are roots, there is dirt. So that's the difference. We are making what is traditionally a single track forest trail adaptive. So you have adaptive equipment you can ride in the forest. So I guess that's my best take on the difference between the two.
Sure. And Dave, I think there's another question that I can read and answer, and you can join in as well. And the question was, what kinds of adaptive bikes do we have? So over the past few years, Friends has certainly created a bit of an inventory of adaptive bikes. That's 6, 7 in all, but most notably as it relates to from an adaptive standpoint, for those familiar with these bikes, these recumbent bikes, which folks are sitting down on, and they're 3-wheeled. We have a Lasher recumbent bike, and we also have some Terra Trike recumbent bikes. The Lasher is notable in that this is a full service bike, in that it's power assist. So it's really proven to be very popular with our folks because it can accommodate a number of needs on the part of the bikers, as does the Power Assist Terra Trike. These adaptive bikes are both hand cycle or hand pedal and foot pedal as well. But on top of that, and as we had referenced before, what's really been a great thing about these partnerships that have grown over the years is it allows us to enhance our resources. And Montgomery County, for instance, has another Lasher as well. So just this past event, they were able to bring theirs as well, and we were able to really increase our inventory of those bikes on hand. Because again, as is pointed out, the challenge for us, and it's a good challenge, is that the level of interest has been so high on the part of folks, is that we need to have those additional bikes.
Yeah, and Bruce, I'll mention just describing the slide again here. In this slide, you're seeing the crushed gravel side path that goes down to the tall poplar adaptive loop. But on the bikes, we have about 7 bikes right now. Friends has these bikes. We purchased these bikes because we wanted the program to get up and running. We are definitely leaning into our partners to provide equipment, just like we do for adaptive paddling with Team River Runner. Friends is a park organization. We're not an adaptive sports organization, although it's amazing how many people in the Mid-Atlantic think Friends is an adaptive sports organization these days. But we're really here at the park about the infrastructure, providing the opportunities to use the natural resource and provide the adaptive trails for our participants. So we have bikes now, but we're looking to more. The Mid-Atlantic Off-Road Enthusiasts, they're a chapter of the International Mountain Bike Association, the National Mountain Bike Association. We're looking to our partners and our manufacturers to help us provide equipment. I think it's no secret to the folks on this panel that adaptive equipment is very, very resource intensive. Bruce referenced the Lasher bike. The Lasher is a hand cycle with electronic assist. It's a full suspension mountain bicycle, and it's a $25,000 bicycle. And so we've invested in one of those because we saw the need for folks who need to use hand power, e-assist hand power. So we have an inventory of bikes, but that's really, I think, not the direction we're moving in, is providing more equipment for the trails. We're looking to provide the infrastructure and facility for our adaptive participants. Okay, that's slide 21. Braden, if you don't mind moving to slide 22. And Bruce, since this is a photo of you, I'll let you briefly talk about the Tall Poplar Trail and the resources that went into it.
Okay, yeah. So it's a nice glamour photo of me there on that slide. But this slide really describes, as Dave mentioned, the amount of investment that went into that Tall Poplar Trail. Keeping in mind the Tall Poplar Trail was an existing trail that we had modified to become again the first adaptive mountain biking loop at a Maryland State Park. So $42,000 was resourced for that trail. And the slide just describes the more specific breakdown. $1,000 towards administration and planning, 2,000 went towards trail flagging reviews, 12,000 was for the professional trail builder, 10,000 for the side path construction, as Dave had mentioned before. For the kiosk signage, 6,000 was invested for that. Another 3,000 for a trail work day where we had volunteers out there to help with that trail. And then lastly, $8,000 for in-kind volunteer work, which again totaled that $42,000 worth of investment for the Tall Poplar Trail.
And that's important to highlight because this is a question that Bruce and I get a lot, and the park management gets a lot because we're the only park building adaptive trails right now. People ask us often, what does it cost? How do we do it? What are the specifications? How do we get started? And as I was alluding to earlier, it's not just about the trail. Trail construction does cost money, but it's also about the facilities around the trail. So, I think, there's probably people in this seminar today that have agency with their local parks and things like that. So we're here for you as a resource. We're an open book on our budgets and our contracts with our trail builders, certainly for the trail specifications and what we're doing. But I think that so many people who use our parks and our public lands think they're free and they don't require an investment in time and energy and resources. So it's good to be transparent about it. Getting trail in parks does take money, it does take time. And to me, that time is best spent when we're building trails for every user. Okay, Braden, that's slide 22, and we'll go to slide 23. Oh, there it is. I forgot about that slide. We just had a question about the CASA trail standards. So I can put a link in the chat, but I think this is a very, very good document for the folks on this call to look at, the CASA standards. And yeah, like I said, these have been adopted pretty much universally. There are some private lands that are building things a little differently, but I'll drop this into the chat and you folks can take a look at the CASA standards. So we've got some questions. And on this slide number 23, this is a photograph of the front of the booklet that describes the CASA trail standards. And the gentleman on the bicycle, he is riding a Trico bike, which we have. That is an e-assist bike that is powered by Lynx.
And I see in the, I'm sorry, one of the questions was, how do we advertise the adaptive trails? How do we proactively work to get the word out to the disability community? And that's something I know that we have lots of folks out there to whom we spread the word, but there's always an opportunity for more as well. And just to share with it now, and we can include this in the link, we have a site currently specifically for the adaptive community, which includes our calendar programming, and that's PVSP for everyone. So that's where you will see the our calendar and registration for upcoming events. Speaking of which, just to share with you all, our next adaptive event will be an adaptive hike on Saturday, August 3rd in the Orange Grove area of Patapsco Valley State Park. But yeah, we're always looking for new opportunities to spread the word about these adaptive activities.
And Bruce, I just dropped that into the chat. That's a sub website that we use specifically to reach out about our adaptive programs here at the park. Another way we get the word out is through our partners. We have, formalized partnerships with Kennedy Krieger, with Team River Runner, with Baltimore Canoe and Kayak, with Howard County Autism, with Howard County Veterans Association, with the Veterans Administration. Bruce, who am I missing? We have they're coming on so fast that again, we're standing up a website for signups. We're standing up general advertisement, but in the context of all the things we're doing here, adaptive program isn't the only thing we're doing, and we're not standing it alone anymore. At our events now, our adaptive participants are being included as part of the general programming for our events. Okay, Braden, I'm not sure what slide that is there, but slide 23, slide 24. Bruce, I think you can chime in here. This is this photo. This is of a young woman getting set up for a bike, but I think this is a particularly nice story of something that happened at McKeldin one day, and maybe you could just let us know about that interaction.
Sure thing. Yeah, I tell you, it's one thing to have plans, which include, who we're expecting at adaptive days, and then there's the wonderful reality sometimes, which leads to just serendipity. And in this case, we had a family that just happened to be in the McKeldin area of the park when we were hosting adaptive biking probably about a year ago, and they were curious and came over to check out our tents and see what was going on. And the young lady there, we were able to get her into an adaptive bike for the first time. And from there, they have been a part of our other adaptive activities. But again, it's something, it gets back to that, opportunity to spread the word, or just to have that visibility within the park as to what we're doing and how it can touch those in the adaptive community. And just one other quick thing about that, I'm particularly gratified, and I know Dave is as well, when we see young people who are a part of these adaptive events. And we're seeing that more and more to make sure that our resources can accommodate those folks as well.
Yeah, and Bruce, on that note here, we're looking at her getting fit up for one of the Trico bikes here. Our adaptive athletes and our adaptive participants are our best sort of, our best advocates for what we're doing here. We've seen people come to the programs a bit tentative. We've seen people that have not been in a kayak before, and certainly not been on a mountain bike before. We've seen them come, I wouldn't say nervous, but they're a little hesitant to get out in the woods. And by the third or fourth time they're there, they're practically pro paddlers and pro mountain bikers. So there's this barrier that I've watched fall many times, and that's really the purpose of our adaptive programming is to open up this resource to all users. I'm seeing a couple other questions here. I'm trying to keep up with them, so I apologize if I'm not. I see one question about how wide are the trails. The trails are generally about 4 feet wide. They do narrow in some sections, but the way they're built is there's always areas to pull off the trail, to turn the adaptive bike around, and that's outlined in those CASA standards. Like I said, I'll grab that link and I'll drop it in the chat. So yeah, that's slide 24, and there's one of our adaptive mountain bikers getting ready to go. Braden, I think we're ready for slide 25. Talking about our board member, Chanel Wimbish earlier, this is a photograph of Chanel, and this is like, I get a little choked up when I see this because Chanel is an adaptive athlete. She is an athlete, period. But she hadn't had a lot of experience doing adaptive mountain biking. And in this photo, you can see her fully locked in, fully engaged, and just tearing it up, going fast through the woods. And behind her, you have two people that are typical mountain bikers. And I recognize these riders behind her, and these are advanced mountain bikers. And it's so great to see this photo and see one of our adaptive athletes, riding with non-adaptive athletes. They're out there having a mountain bike day. And to me, that's the goal, is to have all of these communities riding together, experiencing the park together, and not have them broken into certain groups. So if you're on this panel today, if you're thinking about coming and checking out some of the adaptive mountain biking, and you're like, wow, I'm not sure I can do it. Rest assured that we have every level of rider there, and it's a very supportive community. Okay, we're done slide 25, and now we're on to slide 26. Bruce, you want to handle that one?
Sure. Slide 26, that shows Chanel again, and I really like this slide because in the background is a large Sprinter van from Lancaster Recumbent. Yet another example of one of our many wonderful partners when it comes to adaptive programming. And the gentleman Scott with Lancaster Recumbent has been coming down regularly ever since we started adaptive biking. And he brings a number of bikes as well, in addition to his own expertise. You probably have sensed this theme. I mean, it's great to see that the level of interest is so strong. Our biggest challenge really is having enough equipment on hand. And Lancaster Recumbent's been a wonderful partner in that regard to help with that inventory of bikes as well. So just a great slide representing our partnerships and what they allow us to do in serving the community.
Yeah, and Bruce, I think another thing about this slide, it's just an informal photo, but I think it does, illustrate the vibe of our adaptive programs. We've had a lot of success here at the park because we've built trails, we've built infrastructure, but our main thing, and I don't even really consider it a byproduct. The thing that we've really built here is the community around the park. And I will say that, our adaptive events, they're a good hang. They're a lot of fun. They're very casual. It's with a lot of people who are passionate about the outdoors and appreciate the park, are big on stewardship. We generally have refreshments and swag and things like that there. Sometimes we have food. So as much as it's a day to do the activity in the park, it's a day for fellowship, and it's a day to engage with your park community, your holistic park community, not just folks that might have adaptive. Okay, that's slide 26, a little snapshot of an adaptive day. What's next? We already touched on this. This is about the 3.5 additional miles. This is just a photo of the Lancaster Recumbent Sprinter van with the lasher in the foreground. But yes, this 3.5 miles is the contract is signed, and it's going to begin very soon. It says FY23 RTP, Recreational Trail Program, because that's when the construction was funded. So a 5-mile loop will be constructed in the McKeldin area of Patapsco Valley State Park. That's slide 27. So let's go on to slide 28, baby. We've got a couple questions here. Hang on. Okay, thank you. Again, just another description of what we're doing in the McKeldin area, the full 5-mile loop. We went through this earlier, but this is going to be a serious piece of adaptive infrastructure in a Maryland state park. This is slide 28, illustrating the 5-mile adaptive loop at Patapsco. Braden, let's go ahead and jump to slide 29 since we're starting to run out of time. And this is just a slide showing some of our glamour shots of trail construction. One thing I want to emphasize about the trails and the adaptive trails here at Patapsco is these trails are fully maintained by our volunteers. The Park Service budgets are very thin, so we have a super engaged volunteer trail community that does construction and maintenance of our trail system. So this is just a slide showing some of the typical tools that we use to build a trail. We've got a photograph here of a volunteer from the Mountain Club of Maryland who is doing some rock removal. And then we've got somebody who's more of an arborist who's taking care of some of the roots along a tree on the natural surface trail. Braden, you want to go ahead and jump to the next slide, please? Slide 30. Okay, I know we're running out of time, but Bruce, I'll do this. So the very exciting thing, and I mentioned this earlier, is with our new recreational trail program grant, we're going to be building an additional 5 miles of adaptive trail on the Woodstock side of the park. So McKeldin is underway, some of it's completed, but the Woodstock trail system is going to get an additional 5 miles in 2025. Therefore, we will have a 10-mile adaptive trail system in the McKeldin and Woodstock area of Patapsco Valley State Park. And this slide here is just showing some of the trail alignments that are going to be happening in the Woodstock area. That's slide 30. Braden, if you want to jump to 31. And Bruce, I'll let you jump in on this one.
Sure. So slide 31 it pictures two of our adaptive athletes, two of our adaptive bikers, with the background with Lancaster Recovery, our partner group. One of the photos, again, shows Chanel. And again, she became a member of our board, the newest member of our board of Friends of Patapsco, through adaptive programming. She saw what we were doing, what we were engaged with, and would later join us as a board member and a fully engaged board member at that. And I would add that the other slide in the background, though, there I see a number of tools for the trail. Again, as Dave mentioned, I mean, these trails are wonderful that are created, but it's a matter of maintaining them as well. And with those, again, stretched park budgets, the volunteer community is so instrumental in making sure maintaining these trails. I think there was also a question here in the chat. It said, it asked, what type of equipment is needed for adaptive hiking and fishing? And really not much for either. With the adaptive hiking, we used the Gristmill Trail, which is a fully accessible trail. And then there are times when we're doing our adaptive hike on the River Road Trail, which is partly paved in an area of crushed stone. So, which is suitable for chairs and such. With the adaptive fishing, for those who may not be familiar, we host our adaptive fishing at Lost Lake at Patapsco Valley State Park. And the beauty of that is Lost Lake has a fully accessible fishing pier and nearby ADA bathroom as well. And it's through Maryland Department of Fisheries. They provide all the fishing rods and related gear. So it's not very equipment intensive on the part of our participants.
Yeah, we're trying to get our partners to, and they're providing the equipment. So Maryland Fisheries is bringing fishing rods and lures and all of that equipment. And in that case, with fishing, Trout Unlimited is coming, and they're doing all the sort of in the field training for fishing. So again, our role here at Patapsco is to provide the facility, provide the infrastructure, the permissions, the partnerships, and we're reaching out to our rec partners to help run these programs. We've got a quick question here. We got 3 minutes left. I see that. This is an important question. I think this is from, I'm not sure, I'm not tracking here, but yeah, we get a lot of, Bruce and I are doing this a lot now. We're doing these presentations. We're talking to groups. We've become experts in this adaptive programming only because we've done it. We've learned this organically. So absolutely, we are a resource here for any of your land managers, your parks, even for you. We want to see this type of programming grow, and we are an open book on how we did it. And we are also wide open for you to come and help. We need more people from the adaptive community and accessible community to be a part of these programs and help us grow them.
Thank you so much for joining us. Guys, I'm sorry that we kind of had to wrap things up quick here, but I just wanted to thank you guys again for volunteering your time and telling us about all this awesome stuff you're doing there at the park. It really means the most that you guys took that time, and thank you so much, everybody else, for taking your time to watch their presentation. If you have any questions, if you need to get a hold of us for anything, you can get us toll free at 1-800-949-4232. You can get our local number at 301-217-0124. Visit us online at adainfo.org, or if you want to send an email, adainfo@transcend.org. But that's all I have, and I can't wait to see what we do next time. Thanks, guys.